All right. Well, shalom to everybody. Shalom to everybody. We're glad to be back tonight and get an opportunity to go forward. I hope that if you've been listening, I hope that it's starting to really sink in. I have to be quite honest with you. The sinking in was really not the hardest part. The hardest part is then wrapping your head around all the stuff that you find that goes with it. And so I'm going to continue to endeavor. I think maybe I'm like some of you that really would just like to know, well, what is the truth? Why are we doing what we're doing, and is it true? And I think that as much as we've learned on one side, as much as you could say, some people might say anyways, that they had lost something. On the other side, I personally feel like the gain has been greater than that which we lost. Although it is mind-boggling, friends, the quantity of stuff that being at the right time, led by the divine, and I've been open and transparent with most of you that have been with me for a while, sharing pieces that I believe the Spirit is speaking to me, and we've been in a massive journey because what is going on, all of it, the earth, the geological, the war, all of this stuff that's going on, all has a lot of significance. And so we got trapped in by our birth to a corrupt system and had it driven by society down our throats till we believed that it was true. And now all that's happened is, and I said it as being a Christian pastor, now that I am outside of that realm, but man, when I was in it, you couldn't see any of this stuff because you never read anything that wasn't Christian inspired. And researching history, I spend almost as much time, and I'm not kidding you, I spend almost as much time reading documentation to find out who this is and what this is saying and deciding whether I'm going to throw it away or whether I'm not. And if you smack somebody between the eyes with a hammer, folks, and they don't remember that you hit them with a hammer, you got a problem. And so that's where we are. There are Christian scholars that have accessed their whole life to all of this, and still. So it's actually infinitely larger. It does touch, and it does show, and it does expose all of the evil of organized religion, both in the United States, worldwide, now, and 2,000 years ago. It exposes all of that. I hear things now written in different generations, and things are starting to separate themselves, like I showed y'all, that the multiplicity of writers that it took. Something, I used to say this to people, something just don't seem right here. I keep reading these stories, and the stories are from place to place, or like somebody different wrote it than the last person. And there's all kinds of insignificances, like the person, Moses saw himself die on the other side of the, if Moses didn't write that, then who did? We don't know. We have no clue. And so it actually wasn't me setting about to find this out. It was, if you have any kind of a mind to think, inevitably you're going to ask some questions long enough till you eventually find an answer. And sometimes if you don't want to know, the answer is not the best thing. And so I hope you guys will. I hope some of you will continue. This is all about us leading the divine, the Creator, the true Creator, the Father, the spirit realm, and the things that we are learning there, friends. It's, there's a lot of ways I can make peace with the things I learned in the Bible, and the significance of what they meant. It was pointed at the wrong thing, and that was done intentionally. But the significance of what those things meant still have valid and virtue. And that's why I said, I'm not interested in running off and throwing the whole Bible away. There's a lot of wisdom that we can extract, as well as some historical stuff. But there's also a lot of historical stuff that's not true. Like a little tidbit that I learned, I'll just share with you guys. According to some ancient text that existed, to my understanding, before the Septuagint, which is the oldest Bible that we have, and these texts tell the story of Abraham, and everything is pretty much the same, with the exception of there's one thing that's different. Know what that thing is? The one thing is that when Aharon took his son Yitzhak up to the mountain, there was no angel and there was no ram. And the original story, prior to the one that we got in the inspired text, says that Aharon killed that boy on the rock. Now I got a question to ask you. See, because every question that gets answered brings another 10 questions. So let's just happenstantly, because it's more ancient than what we have, and even if it was just as ancient, it's still another telling of a story that's been brought down 5,000 years through history. And so if, in fact, it is true that there was no animal, there was no God speaking to him, Aharon took his son, he probably heard him in his spirit to do it in the first place. But according to the story, it seems as if Aharon does take Yitzhak's life. And so now I have a problem, because how does the nation of Israel then spawn out of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And how could there be a Jacob if there's no Isaac? You know what that does? That one simple little thing I just shared with you in Abraham, it destroys everything. Because none of it past that is true. Wow. We know there was an Ur of Chaldee. That's a historical fact that's in the Bible, and it is correct. There was an Ur of Chaldee. It was a Canaanite place where they worshiped many gods, is where Abraham came from. And so, wow. That one there took me about a week, folks. My head has been like mush lately with all the new things and that are just, as I said, if you don't want the answer, that's why Yeshua, the mystical Yeshua who did chakras and meditated and ascended inside of himself in his spirit realm, that's who Yeshua really was. And he saw all of these things. No wonder he was fighting with the Pharisees. It was a little bit more than the love-hate picture we're shown. He wasn't trying to be one of the fellas. He was making them guilty of the lies they were teaching. And I can get that. I can see that. I'll tell y'all a little story I learned about Yeshua and Yeshua. You didn't know there was two, but there was. Or at least it is a direction. I'll share that on Saturday. I'll try to remember to do that. Pretty crazy story itself. Anyway, I haven't even prayed. I've been rattling on for 10 minutes. This stuff just blows my mind, man. I hope that you can understand. You can have peace. This is not to destroy us. I'm going to say this unequivocally. God loves you, and this that we're experiencing is not to destroy you. In fact, what it is to make you more successful in the things that are coming. Do you understand that the purpose of establishing a lie is to manipulate someone? The purpose of establishing, and if I could show you all the things that we've seen here in my house, you would go, wow. Okay? I mean, it's like nonstop from 5 different spiritual directions. And please, none of them were demons. So I'm sorrowful that I can't do that, but what I do want to do is I want to help some people maybe who don't have the knowledge and that do desire to find out the essence of what we are as humans supposed to be here. We are supposed to be here because you made a choice to be here. And there's an afterlife that is going to be peace and joy. And so what we then have to do is focus on here. If we focus on here, when we leave here, we will have accomplished the purpose for which we came to this place. And I have to be honest with you, I've waited my whole life for somebody just to tell me that. That there is a purpose behind your life. Every one of you have an individual purpose. And after we've been doing this a while, I might look at you and ask you, so have you been accomplishing your purpose? And I think it's a valid question, but I don't think any of us are accomplishing our purposes probably, other than accidentally. And it's okay, accidentally is good too. You know what I'm saying? If you're kind accidentally, that's good as being kind intentionally. It doesn't have to be one or the other, right? Some things you need to throw away and some things you need to cleave to. And so I hopefully it'll be a blessing to you guys and help some of you along on this journey. I'll put this thought in there. It's hard because the things that we've held so special are now being exposed as something less than. And while that's bad, and I agree it is to me. I fight 1,000 different emotions every single day. And the problem is even if I'm not studying, I'm still seeing things. So I got some people shaking their head. They're going, we are too. Some of you may be out there that have been with me for a little while. I'm telling you, I'm going to say it again. God loves you, and this is not for our destruction. This is for us so that we can actually be successful with our lives. And so I hope that you'll grab a hold of that spirit. And I don't like that I've been lied to, but I ain't mad at nobody. I mean, actually some supernatural things have gone on that have just blown me away. Yeah, it's real. It's as real as anything that's ever been. There's less hindrances between me and the spirit world now than there's been in a long time. Well, what caused that? What caused that is me knowing in my mind the truth. So, anyways, we're going to pray, and Dave's going to bless us with blowing the shofar, and then we're going to jump in. Today we're going to take a look at Creator God. I can't imagine anything more important than where we are in my little teachings. I can't imagine anything more important than that. So we're going to take a little look at that this evening. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for your wonderful love and the direction and the perfectness of things. If we would just open our eyes and be able to see what we haven't ever seen and couldn't understand, and maybe there's those out there that don't want to understand it still. And I can't really do much about that, but I do want to be guilty of pointing people towards the truth and the direction, and then being a friend and trying to help them on that journey. So I bless you and I thank you today. You truly have orchestrated things perfectly. So we thank you. Amen. Well, I'm working on compiling a list of things that they told you in Christianity that just ain't true. Like one of them is that you can't access the Father. I had somebody write me, and I'm not offended by their questions. I think it's a totally logical question. Just told me where she was at, and asked the simple question. So, who do you pray to, and who do you pray through? I couldn't think of a more full question to ask than that one. Who do I pray to, and who do I pray through? And the first one is simple, the Creator. We call him Father around here mostly. He's got many names that all come down to meaning the same thing in every language. The American Indian had a name for him. They called him the Great Spirit. I think that's quite appropriate, actually. Since even the Bible records that those that worship Elohim, that worship Yah, must worship him in spirit. And of course, all of those things are corrupt, which I, in time, hopefully will help to unravel for you so that you can actually see all of the different facets. So let me kind of also, because I'm not in a hurry to do anything, and if I got no agenda, so I don't care where I end up at. Whatever I share with you is going to be a blessing to you. But here's a few pieces that are starting to come to the forefront in my mind as I study. Well, I think I said maybe pieces of some of them for the last couple of weeks, but here's what I'm recognizing. The book that we call the Old Testament, and because of its tie, even though it's a redaction and a twisting and a corruption and a creation, the ties to, quote unquote, the Old Testament are still pretty strong. I mean, you have the apostles quoting prophets. You have Yeshua quoting prophets constantly. He's constantly, referring to the book of Deuteronomy. And so it's a very clear line as you go. Once you're told that this isn't one God, which is what we were taught, right? One God in heaven. He's the creator. He's all knowing. He's all everything. There's nothing. Well, that's part. This is tied into what I'm going to share with you in a minute, because I want you to see. I want you to have in the front of your mind those things, that there is things that we have associated. We've been told to equate El, and Yahweh as the same God. Okay? And El and Yahweh, friends, are two completely different gods. Okay? And it's hard because depending on the stages that you go through the Bible, you actually can see those stages as it went through time and people overwrote it, which is part of the struggles I had with the scriptures, because I'm told that this was all written by Moses, and yet there's a lot of things that says that ain't true. And if that ain't true, then everything else is suspect. And so we should be critically thinking. So anyways, there are two L's that inhabit, if you want to use the term just to be kind, the Hebrew Old Testament. It is comprised of two separate L's, gods, that have been morphed. And because they're morphed, they now have what? Do you understand when they morph a god, why they do that? Let me share that first off. Why do they morph a god? Why are the gods of Samaria, which I read to you guys, also the gods that I read you about in Gilgamesh? And why are the gods from there in the next document? There's 5 or 6 documents that I found that I didn't share with you guys because the principle's pretty much the same. Everybody, so here's a point. When I get to the end, hopefully I'll remember and I'll make this. I think it's pretty relevant for us. So we have a situation. We have to get these thought processes in our mind. We have a situation of what we were told is one is now layers of multiples. So you read through and you get an El section, then you read another section and you get a Yahweh section, and in there you put, well, there was a whole class of people who were henotheistic, which henotheistic means that they believe in lots of gods, but they mainly worship one God. So there's 3 phases of humanity tied to just the Jews. The monotheistic, they have historical proof that the Jews wrote that belief system after they came out of Babylon, or 550 BC. I mean, when they went back to Israel with Ezra and all of that. That's where Judaism had its birth. It did not exist prior to that. And so they have 5 manuscripts that they can use for the Old Testament that validate the different layers. This was in this part, this was written by this part. And so when you begin to actually open up your mind and recognize that what we've been reading is one God sitting in the heaven with a great beard, and I wish I had some pictures from some of the stuff that I've seen, but if you can get in your mind in a high and lofty chair sitting with it, you can see his arms are kind of out like that, and it's a throne of gold, and it sits up high above everything, and he's got this great beautiful, gray beard and long hair, and wearing robes, and whiteness comes off of him. It's really hard when you find out that that's actually a combination of 2 completely different gods that morphed together so that he would be stronger. That's how they make God stronger, friend. Do you know why they put El of the Old Testament? Do you know why? And you may, but you may not. But those people did. The reason that they morphed El Yahweh with Jesus was to increase his strength. When El and Yahweh came together, it doubled their attributes. So now we have El and Yahweh together, and they're twice as strong because now they're twice the God. And when they morph that with Jesus, look at all, just by saying he's the Son of God, look at what that does to him. You'll believe that he did thousands of miracles. Because he's what? He's the Son of the gods. And it's just a mythology. So I'll show you, I'm going to continue to show for a while till I feel like the Spirit has gotten this out of me. So I want to go with you. There's a website called Medium which has writings, scholarly writings. Mariana has put a link to this particular article so you can go read it and see if I'm twisting anything, although I don't have any need to twist anything. But tonight I felt like, since I'm trying to establish, I don't know how many people are hearing it or how many people want to hear it, but I feel like it's the most important message that exists in the world today. So the name of the article we're going to do, it's from the link Mariana put in the bottom, and it's the title of it is 12 Creator God Archetypes. Okay? And I think you guys might be blown away. I don't have it written down, and the page is really small for me sitting here. I can't blow it up, so it's kind of hard to read some of these things. But this first piece that I'm going to share with you, I may not tell you what nation they're from. If you go access it, you can see they have a square for each one. You can see what the peoples were. And if I have to go back and forth, I will. But this first one we're going to read, and I want you to do this. This is what I want you to do. If you do gummies, sit back and eat a gummy. Okay? Open your mind and let's look and listen, because I don't think that this God I'm about to read you about is necessarily but I want you to see. So please, do not go away and go, so which one of them gods was we supposed to worship? Okay? I'm not proposing that you worship anything except the Creator and the earth on which we live. And I'm going to show you that is as old as time is as well. So here's, for those that are interested, here's what we're going to see here, potentially. We can see that there's been something that's been done over and over and over and over again, and human minds like to make connections. And so if you'll listen to these, you will begin to connect the pieces from here and here. Well, that's the same attribute that's the same attribute. I will tell you that for the most part, all of these predate Yahweh. Okay? All of these 12 gods that I'm going to share with you tonight, as far as I know, and if it is, it's probably just one or two of them, but all of them predate Yahweh. But it doesn't really, it's not a deal breaker if they don't predate. What's a deal breaker is if they don't share any connection, because there are literally thousands of gods. Okay, so we're looking for something, not just listening to stories. It's what you get out of it, not the stories. So this first one I know is an Aboriginal. It comes from Australia. It comes from the Aborigines. And I'll begin reading, and then we'll move on through this. So the first God we're going to read about, his name is Numbakula. Numbakula. Like, what is it? Yatuna Matata? Numbakula. Numbakula. All right, let's find out about Numbakula, the god of Australia. Okay, ancient antiquity, Aboriginal, that could be tens of thousands of years old, to be honest with you. So Numbakula was a sky god. Keep that thought in mind when you hear that these are a specific kind of god, because they'll start grouping. And you go, okay, well, they're all, these 5 gods are all the exact same kind of a god. So Numbakula was a sky god who created all life on earth. That's another place where it's like if you were making a spreadsheet or you were making lists, you could lay these out and you would begin to build these lists as we go through them. So we know that he's a sky god. Okay, he's in the heavens. We know that according to what he was, Numbakula is the creator of all life on earth. So does it sound familiar to any of the other gods that you're familiar with? He's a god in the sky. He's the God who created everything, including humans. Okay? His name means, this should blow you away. We're closer to Numbakula than anything, but listen to this. His name means always existing or out of nothing. So do you see how if you didn't have those aspects, there is a precedent? If you are rewriting history, there is a precedent of a God that has already existed who did that. And the name. His name means always existing. That kind of sounds like at least somewhat connected in the mind anyways, common sense. I am the all-existent one. That's pretty close to always existing, isn't it? So now we have 3 major traits already, and this isn't even the main God that I want you to see. Wherever he put his foot down, he formed the mountains and the rivers. Any of you ever read that in the scriptures? Because if you haven't, then you haven't been with me long, because I have read it to you. And the God, the creator of heaven and earth, that God is the one who formed the mountains. We're told that in many different places. It says he drew the mountains out with his finger. And wherever he puts his foot down, mountains and rivers and valleys and forests are formed. So you get the same principle. They're not identical, but it's the same principle. In some depictions, Numbakula is depicted as 2 separate beings. Would it surprise you that we're reading in the Essene Gospel of Peace, 3,000 years newer than this is, that these people, this Jesus guy, is telling the earth that instead of worshiping 2 gods in Israel, that they should be worshiping 2 gods, one on earth and one in heaven. Doesn't that also draw the picture of Jesus and Yahweh, one on earth and one in heaven? Same picture. We're gonna strip and expose the whole New Testament before I get out of this thing. In some depictions, Nambakula is depicted as two separate beings. Guess what? They'll be feminine and masculine. While in others, he is described as a dual being with male and female traits. Father God, Mother Earth. Once they finished with their creations, they became two great lizards. You know why? Because they didn't have anything else for them to do. They'd done everything. They gave the world an answer. They gave their religious followers an answer. This is the answer. This is who God is. So all you need to know is that's how it started. And after that, they just became some lizards. Maybe that's the lizard, the reptilian aliens. Ooh. Booyah. So our next God is Ra. Now some of you may not know anything about Ra, but Ra is one of the major gods that Yahweh is so ticked off at in Egypt. He's the god of the sun. But why would Yahweh be so ticked off at a God that's lesser than him? Don't all of you remember your Christian doctrine that God is the most powerful and there are no other gods but him? And even if there are other gods, they ain't as powerful as him? Wonder why he's struggling so hard with his brother Baal and his sister Ashtarti and Osiris and Asherah and his mama. But Ra was a sun god. You've heard about in the New Testament them worshiping the sun, who emerged from the ocean of chaos. Does that sound like without form and void? At the beginning of time, or in Hebrew at the summit, at Bereshit. He took the form of a human trait. Folks, it's the exact same story. He took the form of a human with the head of a falcon and a sun disk on his temple. You've seen that stamped all over the walls when they show ancient Egyptian pictures. He's a god. He has an eagle, a falcon's head, and a disc. And the purse, yeah, that helps him to time travel. Now, I have to tell you, there is a line of really, really, really intelligent scholars who are saying that those pictures were drawn off of what those people literally saw. And if that's the case, my friend, the whole concept of Anunnakis and other beings, which I showed you guys last week, if you listened to what I told you, I showed you that the picture that was done of Yeshua, on Saturday, was the picture of him being drawn up into a flying ship and it causing wind as it flew off. I showed you. I didn't even look for that. I mean, that's just like it's there. Once you know, the Pandora box thing is really horrible because it really is true. Once you open it, you can't go back. So, let's see. So, Ra was a sun god who emerged from the ocean of chaos at the beginning, at the Bereshit. So it sets us at the beginning, same place as the Bible. Bereshit, at the beginning, at the summit. And he took the form of a human and the head of a falcon and a sun disk on his temple. And he created the Ennead, the old gods of Egypt. But in time, his children grew weary of their father, who had become cold and aloof, and he eventually retired to the heavens where he became the guardian of the sun. At night, he would journey into the underworld where an entourage of gods protected him from the forces of chaos, including a wicked serpent called Apep. So we already at this point have an establishment also of a tie between a serpent and wickedness. Or do we find that somewhere else? Next God we're going to look at. Prajapati. That's probably not right, but that's how I'm going to say it because that's how I can syllable it. Prajapati would be another way, more appropriately probably to say it. The god Prajapati is the Lord of creation, who emerged from tribal waters of chaos. So I want you guys to see, all of these stories have that trait in general so far. What have I read? This is the third one. All of them came out of the water and things were chaos. The Bible clearly says that, if you understand what's being said, that there was nothing there. There was just no order to it. There wasn't anything, it wasn't functioning. That's chaos. Inside a golden egg. This egg contained everything in the universe, meaning Prajapati represented, all that is, including the life force that pervades reality. So he was the life force by which we are learning, that spirit which we call Father. I hope in time you will come to see that there, as much as is being washed away, it's the things that are not being washed away which are what I have to look at to live with. So, including the life force that pervades this reality. So the thing that keeps us all alive. He also had a female aspect. You just can't go nowhere. The American Indians had a male and female aspect, and everything that we've read has had that process. I'm wondering why it's not in the scriptures. He also had a female aspect called Vak, who personified the sacred word of creation. Hello. Wouldn't it make sense that the Mother Earth would be the one in control of the sacred of the earth? Who better to hold the records of the earth than the Mother Earth? He created the Devas, the gods of the ether, followed by the Asuras, which are the gods of the material world below. So there are now, according to this picture, there is God and his wife, or his other half, however you want to look at it. Both can be used almost interchangeably, because a good wife is like the other half of the man. But, so we have the God, the Lord of creation. We have now the gods of the ether, which could be considered the gods of the heavens, part of the Elohim. You'll find that's in every also. And then these Asuras are the gods of the material world below. And once again, that goes back to some of the things that I've already mentioned. They believe that is in fact true. That there were colonizers that came to this earth from another place, and basically the picture of the fallen watchers is actually a picture of people who once inhabited this earth and did everything that the watchers are said to have done. They were just real beings. That's the difference. One is spiritualized and one isn't. So, then he created the Devas, the god of the ether, followed by the Asuras, the god of the material world below. When the heavens were finished, Prajapati created all life on earth, earning him the title of Lord of creatures. God of creatures. Next we have Ahura Mazda. If you own a Mazda car, it's a good one because it's a God's car. Ahura Mazda is the creator of heaven and earth, as well as all of the beings who inhabited it. Have we encountered this? both spirits, humans, and animals. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? He was the first monotheistic deity, known to his followers as, once again, the uncreated one, the I am that I am. Can I tell you something that I'm starting to see? I've kind of alluded to this, but I want to make it even a little more plain so that you can hopefully see. Right now in my mind, from my face, because that's my perspective, from my face to some point out there somewhere that doesn't probably have an end, all of these threads get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter the farther that you go. Because the less things on the outside there are in them. Okay? But it's quite crazy to me that the morphing of El and Yahweh, because El is the only God before Yahweh is ever introduced. He's already having dialogue with Abraham. He's already having dialogue with Noah. He's already having dialogue with Adam. He's already been talking to them people face to face, constantly. Every day he came down and spoke with Adam. This is the in-your-face, talk-to-you kind of God. And then that goes away. Well, why did it go away? Why didn't he come down and hang out on top of the mountain with Abraham and watch the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the other cities with Avram? Why did he do that? So it's a different El. But this El, Ahura Mazda, he's the creator of heaven and earth, as well as all the beings who inhabited it. Isn't that what our belief system has been since our beginning? Isn't that exactly what you were taught about the God of the Bible? It's exactly the same. Why could you be mad at those people for having the same lie that you had? So he's the creator of heaven and earth, as well as all the beings who inhabit it. So we were created by him. Spirits, humans, and animals. He was the first monotheistic deity, and yet we find out that El/Yahweh is the first monotheistic God of Israel, even if they tell you that it's not true. History tells you it is true. Known to his followers as the uncreated one, the I am that I am, the I will be because I said I will be. The scriptures say he formed the entire cosmos by thought alone, which is actually, there's some proof that we don't speak in the afterlife. We think. He dwelled in the heavens. It was said that the sun was his eye, which he used to observe the earth below. It was said that his sun was what his eye was entered on the earth below. It's exactly the same principle. This made fire a very sacred element to the Zoroastrians as it captures the brilliance of the sun upon earth. Wow. These have pretty much nailed it. Every one of them has been a picture that we were presented in Christianity growing up our whole lives. Number 5 is El. We need to know this is one of the gods of the Bible that they're telling you is not a separate God. El was the supreme creator of the Canaanites. Okay, so the first thing that we can do to be real smart is to figure out El was the God of the Canaanites, not a God of Israel. That's the first thing. And the father of the gods. There were 70 The Jews teach that there is a council of 70. Did you know in Judaism that in Israel, in Jerusalem, the priesthood had a council of 70? Do you know now, you do know now, where that came from? It came from the mythology of El having 70 children, which are gods. When they say Elohim, friends, a wise Jew knows exactly what he's saying. It's not hidden from them. It is from us, but it's not from them. I've had Christians argue with Jewish people that there ain't no 70 elders. Wow. So, El was the supreme creator of the Canaanites, so there's our list of traits. He was what? He's the creator. Doesn't matter who he worshipped, he's deemed as being a creator. And once again, the Father. And he's not only the Father, he's the Father of gods. Notice it doesn't say the Father of humans. It says he's the Father of gods. His wife was the mother goddess Asherah. At least the others have got it right that there's a male and the female. Y'all didn't understand that, but Asherah is El's wife. Mother Earth, you could call her. His wife was the mother goddess Asherah, and together they sired 70 children, which are gods. In the Baal cycle, the time when Baal was popular before, okay, so please listen, these gods have all risen to prominence, and then they fall away and get supplanted by another one. I did not realize how big what I had told you guys was until I came to the understanding that it is in fact true. There is a new god somewhere is going to come on the scene because the effectiveness of Jesus, they're losing it. Okay, it's not holding people anymore. And you have to have people believe in a God to hold them to it. So in the Baal cycle, which is pre-Yahweh, El is described as a gray-bearded man with a kingly demeanor. In fact, I have some other writings that gives attributes of him. He was the King of Kings. El, not Yahweh, El was the King of Kings. So at best, a massive tragedy has been done to the Jewish people because they believe that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has the name that is so unspeakable while they use the term El and they don't give him what he deserves, the Father of Yahweh. It's another morphe. El was described as a gray-bearded man, which is the picture I have of God, with a kingly demeanor. He's a warrior, Yehovah Sevaot, Jehovah, captain of the army, a man of war. A warrior of prowess and a wise man's soul. El was known to his followers as Kwan Ayanu Olam, the Creator eternal. He was one of four beings to emerge during creation. Dagnu, who was a day god. Eliab, the divine ancestor, and Baal Sapan, a storm god, and El himself. That's where 50% of the God of the Bible, that's who he is. And he is a pagan Canaanite god. And he has a son named Yahweh, but the son named Yahweh has 69 siblings. Baal and Asherah. if you guys will listen and open your minds and hearts, what you'll begin to see, now you can see why in the literary work that was written that's called the Bible, now you see why in specific times you don't hear much about other gods. And there were times when you hear how wonderful it was that this was Josiah's time was one of those where it was such a wonderful thing. Josiah got convicted and he was mad at all they were doing to Yahweh. And so they went around and they broke down every high place under every tree, and they destroyed the Asherah poles, and they destroyed all of this stuff. What you don't know is that the truth is that was how those people lived. They were that. They worshiped, I guess, all 70 gods. I don't know. Maybe you only worshiped the God that you need at that time. But El is classed as the Creator eternal. He was one of four beings. Wow. So that's where the Creator of the of half of the biblical God, that's where he came from, friend. Him and his three siblings came up out of nothing. Cheminagagu. Cheminagagu was the supreme creator of the Muisca people. He was banished. He banished the darkness of chaos. Yet again, the creation story in every one of these has had to do with some form of creation or lack of functionability. That's really the concept they're getting. By opening his belly. Remember? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Don't hide it under a bushel basket. Open it. Open your heart. Open your inward parts and let the light out that's inside of you. So Cheminagagu banishes darkness from chaos by opening up his belly and releasing a great light from within. At the same time, another being emerged called Baku, who was known as grandmother. Always, though, so far we've hit it 100% as a male and a female. Where he represented light and materialism, she was represented the non-physical aspects of creation. In this sense, Cheminagagu and Baku are one, as it was her will and his form that gave rise to the cosmos. So inevitably it always comes back to they're together. In every one of these stories it's been identical. Not every one of these stories has all of the identical pieces, but I think hopefully I've been clear enough that you can see there's no doubt we got everything we were believed could have come right out of here, and we didn't need to know about Yahweh. Ulgan. Ulgan is a creator being who is said to be without end or beginning. He is described as an old man with a long beard who lives in a golden house on the 16th floor of heaven, above the stars and the sun and the moon. He created heaven and earth and was the upholder of peace, order, and goodness. Well, that sounds like that's a good God, ain't it? Ulgan also governed the celestial movements of the heavens, including the weather, the rising and the setting of the sun, and the movement of stars. That's what Ulgan did. Sound familiar? Begocheti is a creator god who had a head of golden hair, pale skin, and deep blue eyes. So he was a European god. He emerged from the darkness of chaos, sound familiar? With all of the other creatures. Okay? So now we have the God coming out with all the other creatures. He was like them. But unlike origin stories, he did not create the world. Instead, he produced all the natural features upon it, including mountains, insects, and plants. He also set the sun, moon, stars in the sky. His final act was to impart humanity with the secrets of cooking, agriculture, language, and law before disappearing from their lives forever. Yeehaw! We want to go worship that one. He'll always be there. He'll always leave you. Adroa. Adroa is a transcendental God who lives beyond space and time. He created all life on the earth, included the first humans. Gabora Boro and Mimi sounds slightly different than Adam and Hua, doesn't it? These mortals were supernatural in that they could create also, and were long-lived. Doesn't sound so far-fetched from the same story, does it? The Lugbara believed that their creator had two aspects. Guess what they are? One was Adroa, the kind and the benevolent Father God who lived in the heavens, establishing law and order. Isn't that what we've been told our whole life? In fact, we are waiting for what? We're waiting for Judgment Day. Who, pray tell, judges at Judgment Day? Well, of course, none other than the righteous El. And the other was Adro, his physical self, who lived in caves and river and brought chaos into the world. So the Spirit God sits up on high, and his physical self stayed down there on earth and is causing all kinds of chaos. That sounds a lot like that there was one that was a fallen angel of the Father that came down here and is guilty of causing all the chaos. Does anybody see the correlation? Veraroka was the creator of heaven and earth. He filled the sky with birds and the wilderness with beasts and the seas with fish. He also sculpted a race of humans from clay. He then traveled the lands, teaching the art of civilization to mankind. So we propelled so quickly because we had a space person that was here teaching us what we couldn't know after they created us. Does anybody see that? It's not as far-fetched as you think it is. In fact, there's way too much history to say that there's no possibility that it could have been. And I'm going to show you some things in the Bible that are very clear that that's what was going on. We just were told that wasn't what was going on. So he then traveled the lands, teaching the art of civilization to mankind. This included weaving and language and politics and agriculture and arts. And he often dressed as a beggar to disguise himself. In this form, he was described as an old man with a long white beard, dressed in a tattered robe, hunched upon a staff. Ometal, I don't know. However I say that, I'm going to get it wrong. If you're reading with me, then you can see what the name is. I suspect Aztec, Mayan, Spanish, maybe. Ometeotl was an ancient deity who emerged from pre-creation to forge the universe. This primordial being possessed two spirits. One, Ameteotli, who was a male, and the other was Ameteotl, who was a female. Together they resided on Omeakan, not Mishmakan, the place of duality. As above, so below. All of these principles, folks, it's just everywhere. Which sat on the 13th level of heaven, which is why 13 is an unlucky number. No, I don't think that's right, but I had to put that in there. So this god, this Aztec or Mayan god, sat on the 13th level of heaven. After they finished creating the heavens, they produced the four Zezkatlapopka, I hope so, who were instructed to rule over the cardinal direction upon the earth. So you see some of those principles even in ancient Mayans and Aztecs. Bimba. Bimba is a creator god who was composed of four parts. Two aspects were male, known as Pimba, yet again, a sky god, and Indomayeri, an earthly deity. The other two aspects were Masukaroni, which was a fire goddess, and Pharaoh, which was a water deity. Whereas Pimba represented law and order, his sister symbolized chaos and destruction. Same picture, folks. In time, she created so much destruction that Bimba created the other twins, Pharaoh and Musakaroni, to reestablish order in the world. And so you see the coming out of all of them ends up at the same place. The struggle's relatively the same through every bit of this. And so I don't believe that that's just the cleanest that I could find to try to point the picture to you. I think it's one of the most valid questions for people who, I will say this, are in my state. That is to say, everything. I only thought that 2 years ago everything I'd ever believed was done away. Now everything I believe is done away. And I had to, and you do too, have to be very careful. Because what you fill a hole with, you remember when the demons were cast out, the metaphoric picture is when the bad was cast out, then if you didn't fill it with something, you would end up worse off. For those people who have gotten blessed enough to hear the truth that I'm sharing right now and go back to Christianity, and there will be some that will, those people are exactly who the New Testament is talking about. It was a metaphoric picture of coming out of a lie and then deciding to go back. It's the same metaphoric picture in Genesis when they said the meat pots were full in Egypt, but you were stuffing your kids in walls and being beat. We forget. Without history, we're doomed to go back to the bondage that we were in. History is what makes us remember why we did something. Really sad, friends. It's really sad. But you know what? God, the Father, the Creator, it's obvious all of this has a purpose. As the saying goes, there can be no good without bad. And there can be no bad without good. So both of these are necessary. We needed to find this truth. It's not to hurt you. We needed to find it. And when we do finally get it, you'll turn around and look back and you'll go, man, I wouldn't go back to that for nothing in the world. And some will and some won't. I know it. It's horrible. I hate it. I wish I could help everybody in the earth, but I can't. Some people don't want to hear the truth. They want it easy. I just want to keep doing the rules. I just want to keep following the pagan holidays. I just want to keep. I guess if that's your desire, this is your earth journey. You made a decision to come here. I don't know why. I don't know why I did. But if all of that's true, and I suspect there's a pretty good bit idea that it is, then it brings on all kinds of things. So I hope that you'll be encouraged. It really is true, more so than even when I said it in Christianity, friend. Our best days can be in front of us, not behind us. In fact, I don't think that any of us have ever gotten to live even remotely close to what a human was meant to be. And of course, society's doing everything they can do to destroy that. So I hope that you see that all of these things I'm showing or trying to show are not insignificant, and they're not small. I said a while ago, and so I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to close. I guess I did better than I thought, but anyways, all of these threads, this is just a hunch that I have. Maybe you can see it too. But the more we look at these things and how large the concoction of these belief systems was and how long it took, and we haven't looked linearly at time. I have those pictures in my mind, but I haven't drawn any chart, to like people do, to show you the chronology of the Gospels. But in truth, all of these stories to me, the congruent and the consistency over thousands of years between thousands of different sects of people are quite amazing to me personally. So here's maybe a greater question, and this is why I wanted to say this now and put a seed in you. What if the truth of the matter is that the story that I've read and the story that we've spent our life reading in Genesis, what if all of those different stories are the same story, they just came from different peoples? Then you would have to ask yourself, without the internet and without computers, how did people all over the earth have the same belief system and being thousands of miles apart and no ability to get close to each other? How did that happen? How did all have a God that was a spirit, that was a creator? How did all have an earth that we're supposed to take care of, which is like our mother? How? How can that happen accidentally? And what you will find out as you gain enlightenment and get reason, you will find out that it's a synchronicity. It's not happening right now accidentally. It's happening because this is the time when we need to see what the truth is. All of us recognize something is going haywire in the cosmos, friends. On every level. The heart of man is horrible, and yet at the same time, the heart of man is the most powerful thing really that exists. We just have corrupted hearts. And as we will free ourselves and begin to be concerned about what does it mean for me to be a human, when you begin to recognize that we are all spirits, and I shared this 35 years ago in a Pentecostal church, even though I was an outcast, that we are already eternal and we are already spiritual. I don't know how at 30 years old I just knew that. But as long as I can remember, I've known that. I am a spirit. I am eternal, and you are too. What is not eternal is your physical body. Peter talks about it. That's how I knew I was right, because it was in the Bible. Peter says you have to put off this garment. So it ain't nothing but a set of clothes. Our physical human body is nothing but a set of clothes. In fact, it appears that our spirit inside of this body is so infinitely much larger than what this physical body is, that when it comes inside of the body, it has to compress. But all of those threads tie back. There's too many of them together. I've read 12 to you tonight, but I promise you there's 100 more. It's just I have to try to pick and bring things. I know none of us are scholars, but just because we ain't scholars, does that mean we have to be blind? And so isn't it a worthwhile cause to try to compress and summarize and bring together and then share with you guys who don't have the time to go study for 20 hours? I think it's a worthy cause. And along the way, we're all blessed. We're all blessed. And we'll continue to be blessed, and not only will we be blessed, we will increase in blessing. Because the less we fight who we are as humans, the more time we have, hopefully, to improve who we are as humans. Now, if that's not your heart, then you're a completely different case study. Okay? And there's probably plenty that are. That's just not my concern. That's not who I'm trying to reach. I'm interested in people who recognize inside of them that not only they are something special, that there is more to this than we have any knowledge of. Because I believe that's very true. So, shalom to each and every one of you. I hope that you do feel the blessing. And I hope that you'll see that he wants us to know what the truth is. Not so that we can do whatever we want to do, but so that we can actually do what we already know we're supposed to do at many levels. We just are rebellious to do it. So, shalom. We're going to pray. Father, thank you today for your goodness, and thank you for your wonderful mercy. I just bless you for all the wonderful things you've shown. Man, wow. We jump out in 12 creation stories like it's nothing. Wow. So I bless you. I thank you for leading us. I thank you for everything being ordered and orchestrated. Help us to be healed as humans, that we might come in peace. Amen. Brother Dave? All right, guys. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope that you begin to sense the changes going on all around you.